Monday, and you know what that means. Yes, sirree, Bob. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Yeah. Thank you, fake audience. Thank you, fake band. Let's get a look at that real audience. Hello, everybody. There you guys are in the chat room. My coloration. Oh, I better call the tech center. I look a little red today, like I've been taking a lot of niacin or something. Look like I'm having a niacin flush. Welcome to the big show. Hope you guys all had a great weekend. Let me check my audio levels. There they are, looking good. So today's show, we're doing something, I think I did this like 3 years ago, maybe. Let's see. Somebody's saying something about the audio, but I don't know what that is. Oh, I see what it is. Yeah, you guys are the real audience. Hello, Mojo. Hello, Peter, Robbie Hancock, Vincent Brennan, M3 Lucian, Howling Wolf, Dave Skinner, Charles. Hello to all you guys. So, yeah, I'm always giving you stuff that I've researched and songwriting tips, production tips, tips on doing cues, largely stolen from Dean Crepane. Thank you, Dean, who I saw in there somewhere in the chat room. And then last week I did a piece, I think I sent out a newsletter article or something about the community and just how much the community means to me and how much the community, you guys mean to each other. And I thought, why don't I just have people from the community contribute some songwriter tips, and let's see how that goes, because this you guys may have things that are idiosyncratic to the way you write. Maybe it didn't come out of a book. Maybe it only works for you, or maybe it'll work for everybody else in the chat room or in the audience. We don't know until we say it. And because we're having, gosh, who am I having next week? Can't think of his name. John Asher on the show. By the way, you guys have, I think I've had John Asher on the show about 3 or 4 times over the years. Remember him, the guy with the big poofy blonde hair? John, his songwriting career has really taken off. He's signed to Rock Nation. He's got a Britney Spears cut, all kinds of stuff going on. Not just a little bit of stuff, but like it's growing. He's gaining some momentum, and it's really working. And so he's going to be on the show next week. So I thought it'd be really cool that whoever submitted the most tips for this week's show gets their song reviewed by John Asher next week. What I should have said, I mean, that is going to happen, don't get me wrong, but John is primarily a pop songwriter. So I'm looking at my thing, my notes for the show, and Vincent, I don't know how you pronounce your last name, Vincent Miele? M-I-E-L-E, Miele? Miele? Vincent, are you there? Hello, Vincent. If you're in the chat room, let me know. But Vincent definitely took the prize for the most tips. And so I'm just dying to know, Vincent, are you primarily a pop writer? I mean, he can do just about any kind of music, but pop and EDM are probably his fortes. How do you say the plural of forte? It's like trying to say the plural of Prius. Are they Prii? Don't know. Anyway, Mojo said he saw that Matt Hurt had 2 credits in Connie and Carla, the latest Nia Vardalos pick. Or I don't know if it's the latest one, but it is one of. Doug B says he submitted 101 songwriting tips. I didn't see 101. Do you put 101 tips on our Facebook page? Okay. Mojo says forte is the plural is pronounced the same as the singular. Okay. So anyway, let's just get right to it, because I've got quite a lot of them, and I am just dying to share these with you guys. And once I've gone through these, if we still have time left on the show, you can kick some stuff into the chat room as well. Peter Rahal says, actually, to be correct, forte is pronounced fort, but who's counting? I don't know. There's Mary Band with the weekly video and audio problems. All right, so here we go. Vincent's first suggestion or first tip is don't jump off the bridge. I think sometimes some songwriters, other than the best, overlook the importance of the bridge. It's the transition from start to finish and can easily escalate the time, or really escalate the time. Is having a bridge necessary? No, but in many cases it will fit in well. A weak bridge won't kill a song if you have a good hook, but a strong bridge can make all the difference in the world. Case in point, and this is from Vincent, I wrote a song I thought was very good. The bridge was actually a keyboard solo. It's as melodic and all, but there seemed to be something missing. I still didn't really give it much thought before sharing it with a friend. That friend, who'd written a few songs himself, added 4 lines of lyrics and ditched the solo. The end result? It created a dramatic transition into the final chorus with a powerful vocal track and completed the song. Of course, I had to swallow some pride and give up some of the writing credit, but that's another subject. So yes, I completely agree. In the context of film and TV cues, bridges not as valuable. And I would even venture to say that in the context of modern day radio pop, I could be wrong about this, but I think that there are fewer bridges showing up in songs and different song construction. People are taking more chances. They're using actual song forms. They're not just like writing whatever comes to them and kicking out these crazy forms. But the forms I don't hear as much of the traditional like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and out stuff, but I would say that predominantly that is still what you hear. If you were at the Road Rally this past year, or for that matter any year, Ralph Murphy gives a great presentation where he actually does a statistical analysis of the previous year's pop hits and country hits and talks about how long the intros are, how long until the first pronoun is mentioned in the song, whether the song had a bridge, how long it takes to get to the first chorus, things like that. I'll have to go back and see how bridges did in 2015, because Ralph did give us a report at the 2016 Road Rally. So there you go, the bridge. Another one from Vincent. I'm a believer that the greatest songs that were ever written always existed, but in some other dimension. Some people have the ability to tap into this dimension and pull them out. Songwriters. I listened to Penny Lane by Paul McCartney as that whole melody and chord structure was plucked out of the dimension. So how we get into this dimension is the trick, and it's basically on a subconscious level. Some have tapped in while under the influence of drugs, and Vincent says he's not condoning drugs. Thank God for that, Vincent. Some have tapped in through meditation or solitude. Some just have a raw talent that they can tap into when needed, but many of us do not. Find out what works for you and repeat it. He goes on to say that some of the best hooks that he's come up with were while he was sleeping, just lying half asleep in bed. That's actually a hypnotic state right there. When you're kind of floating between sleeping and being awake, that is technically a hypnotic state. I'd wake up and hear a melody and chords in my head, but would quickly forget as I got on with my day. The key is to have a voice recorder nearby, and before you forget, sing it into the recorder. Truer words never spoken. It's easy now because you can do that with your smartphone. That's true. That inspiration can come at any time, in a car, in a bus, whatever. But when it happens, you know that you've walked into that dimension. Developmental psychologist Joseph Chilton Pierce said that although creative breakthroughs can be spontaneous, it helps if we open the door and assist the process. The door to creativity is often open during meditation, reverie, or dreams in which time is perceived as an eternal present as I'm present, in which the divisions of past, present, and the future meld into an all-encompassing now. That's some deep stuff right there. In this state, it's not just the separations in time that disappear, but also separations between people and things. So don't let a good melody go to waste. It's there, now go and get it. That's a lot of deep stuff. And you know what? I'm not a woo-woo kind of person, generally speaking, but I do tend to agree with this. Um, how many times have you had a thought and you walked like out of the kitchen into the bedroom to tell your spouse something and you go, crap, I can't remember what it was that I was going to say, or why did I walk into this room? What was, you leave a pair of glasses, your car keys. By the time you get to the room, you don't remember. I recently read an article that said that when you have a thought in a room, that the room actually acts as a container, and once that you and your brain leave that container and go to the other space, that's why you forget. So that probably ties into this. I do my best thinking in the shower. I have a million ideas for stuff. Usually around road rally time, I start having ideas for panels. Of course, it's after I've got the schedule done. That's when I start having a bunch of great ideas for other panels. You'd be shocked how many times those are in the shower, and I've tried to write them in the steam. I guess I should get a waterproof voice recorder. And I used to have a little voice recorder, a little digital voice recorder that I kept in the center console of my car. Unfortunately, some what do you call him? A car parking guy, a valet guy, I think must have hijacked it because one day I reached in there on the 101 to get it out and it was gone. But you know what? Try and nail those ideas. Um, Peter Rahal, I don't know why this joke popped up, but it says a referee separating two playmates fighting equals splitting hairs, Hares. Bunnies, hairs, get it. Okay. Like Playboy Playmates. I get it. All right. Okay, going on to Vincent's next suggestion. Study music. Oh, I want to add one other thing to his previous thing about greatest songs already existed, but in some other dimension. You know what? The greatest way, I believe, to get them out of that dimension and into your head and onto a piece of paper or into your smartphone or whatever form of media you're going to use to record the idea before you forget it is craft. The more craft you have, the better off you're going to be. People love to believe that God in the universe just pour these lovely thoughts into my head. I think I've only met two people in my entire 40-year career that I would say I actually believe that that happens for them. One of them being Lamont Dozier. But you know what? The more songwriting craft you have, the more likely that those happy accidents are going to happen. I really can't think of anybody that I've met in my career maybe that was just born talented. I mean, talented, yes, but born uh, born as a fully cooked, fully completed songwriter that could write hits right out of their mommy's belly, or by the time they're old enough to, speak and write basic life skills. I've just not met those people. The people that are the hit songwriters that I know, it's not an accident. It's opportunity meeting preparation. There are people who concentrate on their craft. There are people that read songwriting books. There are people that watch Taxi TV. There are people that go to the road rally. There are people that belong to songwriting organizations in their town. They hang out with other songwriters. They go on the internet and watch videos how to write songs. They do all this stuff to develop their craft, and that gives them sort of a foundational skill set that when they have an idea, they can turn it into something valuable. So don't cheat yourself out of grabbing those ideas out of another dimension, if you will, by not having the craft. Look, hope is not a strategy. You can hope all you want, but you can wait 10, 20, 30, 40 years for a hit to fall in your lap. Or you could spend every day of your life working some certain amount of time on your songwriting craft, and that is going to speed up the timeline and dramatically increase your chances of writing a hit. So there you go, is my 2 cents on that. All right, Vincent's next suggestion, study musical modes. Modes are alternative tonalities or scales that can be derived from the familiar major scale by starting on a different scale tone. Okay. That's over my pay grade. I kind of get it, but I'm not a trained musician and I don't do scales. So let's see what else he says about that. Knowledge and mastery of these modes. See, there you go, knowledge and mastery. In other words, craft. at least in regard to this, can be just the trick to come up with some great melodies or even solos. Listen to Scarborough Fair by Simon and Garfunkel, and listen for the Dorian mode, which is a wonderful mode to write in. Okay, who do we have on the show? Is it Rob Shirelli? I think we talked about this. I think Dean mentions it, Dean Crepane. I'm looking, I've got Dean's book here with me now, Demystifying the Cue. The other one's still out on loan, Demystifying the Genre. But I think Dean mentioned it, Rob Shirelli mentioned it, I had somebody on the stage at the Road Rally that mentioned it. People want to know how to, Robin Frederick was talking about it. How do I sound contemporary? Well, if you're using the same chord voicing that they were using in the mid-70s, which was maybe when you fell in love with music, and it was kind of this soft rock, Jim Croce, folky, Cat Stevens, James Taylor, Eagles, Poco, that kind of stuff. And if you're using the same chord voicings and the same rhythmic patterns and the same phrasing and the vocal delivery that those artists were using and the songwriters were writing in back then, your music is going to sound dated, not contemporary. But if you change up the phrasing, change up the rhythm, and change up the voicing of the chords, you can sound contemporary, and that is one of the most key elements, I believe, as it relates to melody and contemporary melodies, is you've got to have contemporary sounding chords. I think I've known people to say that they'll drop the fourth from a chord just because it sounds better. And so there you go. Try that, see if it works out. Break away from the mold. While we're all aware of the formula, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and out, that's probably the most recognizable formula, and there are tons of songs written that way. But think differently, and you can come up with something that stands out as unique, and you might have a hit. I'm a whore. I don't know how else to say it, but if I were a songwriter, I would want to write songs that make money. I'm sorry, but look, and I'm not saying anything negative about people that write for the love of the craft. They just love to write because they love to emote. It makes them feel good. Yay. Me personally, if I were going to write a song, I would want to write a hit because I would want to take that skill that I've developed, that craft that I've learned, and I would want to earn money by using that and have something that's going to play on the radio or be on the internet, whatever, or be played at a concert in front of 20,000 people. I would love to be able to say, I did that. I wrote that. That's my craft. That's my art. That's my contribution from a musical standpoint. The fastest way and most effective way to get there, I personally believe, based on everything that I've learned over a long time in the industry, is that most songs, most hits, and Ralph Murphy will confirm this, are in fact written with the classic A-B structure. ABC if you want to include a bridge, which you probably should. Not to say that you shouldn't try variations. I'm not saying that you should never ever try other stuff. I'm just saying that the statistical probability of having a hit is with you when you are writing in a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and out form. That said, I'd say there are probably 2 or 3 other forms that show up 20% of the time. I'm guessing 75-80% of the songs that are on the charts are in the traditional pop song form, and somewhere in the 20 or 25% are in other forms. Like I mentioned earlier, I am starting to see other forms show up. I'm going to take my watch off. I keep hitting the desk with it. So there is my thinking on that. Vincent goes on to say his next bullet point is, it's all about the bass. Well, not all, but move off bass off the root. I don't really understand that sentence. Move off bass off the root. It's amazing what a difference in the feel of a musical passage has when the bass player plays a third or a fifth off the root. Experiment with that, and it can help take the song in an entirely different direction. Ooh, boy, I'm going to mention something awesome about that. You guys know, many of you know, some of you know that I'm friends with Hookman, Marlon Bonds. We've had him at the Road Rally. He and I were together in Hawaii last year at the Hawaii Songwriters Festival, and he did a thing where he came on stage, took his phone, plugged it in, and said, "Here's a demo of a song." And I think he was writing it for Christina Aguilera, and it just wasn't working. I mean, everything about the song, it had numerous writers on it, and they kept working it and reworking it and working on the beats and working on the melody, working on the lyric, and it was good, but it didn't reach that A++ mode just yet. And then finally they decided, I think when the original artist passed on it, they decided to pitch it to somebody else, and they realized that the other person they were going to pitch to would need the song in another key, in a lower key, because their voice wasn't as rangy on top. So they brought it down, I don't know, a semitone, whatever. They brought it down a little bit. And in doing so, they discovered that all of a sudden the song just moved better and had more character. And it was just as simple as just changing the key of the song. Why? Probably because of the bass. It was an urban pop style song. Bottom end is really important. It is all about the bass. And just by dropping it down a little bit, rather than the bass notes being higher up on the neck and not having kind of the balls that the song needed, it worked. So I'm not going to argue that point with you, Vincent. I think you're right. Here's a great songwriting tip from Joni Mitchell that Vincent would like to pass along. Sooner or later, we are going to run out of Vincent stuff and move on to other people, I promise. Here's a great songwriting tip from Joni Mitchell. Okay, you could write a song about some kind of emotional problem that you are having, but it would not be a good song in my eyes until I went through a period of sensitivity to a moment of clarity. Without the moment of clarity to contribute to the song, it's just complaining. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Thank you, Joni Mitchell. We've all had that uncomfortable moment where we've hung out with a songwriting friend and they played a song of theirs that they were just dying to play it. And you could tell when they played it, whether they played it live on a guitar or a piano, or they played you, a little demo off their phone or whatever. It meant everything in the world to that person. Why? Because it was an intensely personal experience for them, hence an intensely personal song for them. Hence, it sounded like whining because there was no resolution. And I completely agree with Joni Mitchell that what do they call it in movie making? Contrast, definitely part of songwriting and movie making, but you need to have a problem and a resolution. I'm not really finding the words I'm looking for here, but that's the basic idea. So that's what the moment of clarity is, when balanced or contrasted with the complaining or the whining. The moment of clarity, it delivers a resolution. So I like that one. Next bullet point, if you want to be an expert songwriter, listen to and break down the songs of the masters, from Bach to McCartney to Bacharach. Yep, Robin Frederick has said that. I'm sure other people before her said that. I think everybody who's ever written a songwriting book will tell you. I've talked about it on Taxi TV endlessly. Tony Robbins, the self-help guru. Just about anybody who knows anything will tell you that anything that you want to become masterful at is going to take you a really long time to become masterful, and the fastest way to get there is to look at a piece of work or something created by somebody else that's already mastered the craft, in this case songwriting, and just mimic what they do. Now, I know some of you out there going, crap, I'm turning off Taxi TV because Lasco just said to imitate or mimic what other people do. No, you've got to become strong enough at doing it that you develop your own style because you've gotten so good mimicking what they do. From my own personal experience in the studio, I remember the first time I was able to get something from the studio plugged into the XLR connector in the wall on the mic panel and get the signal to come into a recording console and see the meter bouncing up and down. I was like, yay! That was pretty awesome. All of a sudden I started to understand signal path. Well, after that, I was able to get that same signal to go to the tape machine, and I had the tape machine in the input mode, and I was able to hear it coming back through the console and monitoring it through the monitors. That was step number one. For the next year of my life, my engineering largely consisted of, is it making it to tape? Does it sound reasonably good? It was all about just making stuff work from a technological level. But then I went into what I called the imitative stage, and I absolutely realized I was doing it. But I would go home at night if I was working on a country rock record. I would go home and I would listen to the Eagles, or I would listen to Loggins and Messina, or I would listen to Poco. Whatever style of music I was working on, I would imitate what they did. I would make notes on the back of album covers. I would write stuff on a legal pad. And I was going in the studio and delivering to my clients stuff that had already been done by other people who were much better than I was. But after about 6 months to a year of going through that imitative stage, all of a sudden I became masterful enough because I'd spent the prerequisite or the requisite 10,000 hours in the studio where I had become masterful, and I could say, you know what, that Stevie Wonder bass sound would be awesome for this, but I am masterful enough now that I can deliver another kind of bass sound that would actually be even more appropriate. So it was a cumulative learning process, and I absolutely agree that you got to break down the songs from the masters to become a master yourself. A good actor studies performances of other actors to perfect their art, so why wouldn't songwriters do the same thing? Take the song Penny Lane by the Beatles. Look at the flowing up and down melody where most of the notes are just half or whole step away. Avoid too many leaps that make it difficult to sing. Look at McCartney's transition of B major to a B minor and how it leads to a different chord progression. That's what I'm talking about. It's brilliant. Listen to how, that was for the next sentence. Listen to how naturally a song goes back and forth between the B to A and back to B again. It's brilliant. Exercises like this won't necessarily make somebody the next McCartney, but they will improve songwriting skills and perhaps invoke enough inspiration to write their next masterpiece. Craft. You have to learn craft from people that know craft and then practice it over and over. We all know this stuff, right? But do we all do it? Okay, another bullet point. The best thing about lyrics is that they don't always have to make sense. Now, you could probably get shot in Nashville for saying that. They're really big on lyrics that tell a story with a lot of visual detail. But let's leave Nashville out of it for a minute. I want to see what else Vincent has to say about this. People are going to put them together and try to make sense of them anyway and come up with their own interpretations. There are certainly a lot of songs on the radio now that use very short phrases and almost inanely simple lyrics that just I don't know. I can't even come up with a great example on the fly, but you all know what I'm talking about, right? Stuff that is kind of the opposite of a beautifully crafted song. But yet, it's a hit. Why is it a hit? Because the melody works, the rhythm works, the vocal phrasing, and the lyrics are appropriate for that combination of other ingredients. And if you probably tried to tell a story with great visual detail over a rhythm track like All About the Bass, probably wouldn't work. It'd sound goofy, maybe even sound dated. You even have the power to make up your own words and no one is going to call you illiterate. Goo goo goo, jube, do do, run run, etc. Don't overdo it though, it's not 1969. Thank you, Vincent. You can be writing from a perspective of another character. Very important to think about. Glad that you brought that up. Not necessarily yourself. Absolutely. So once you start thinking in terms of the character, thoughts will fly. That's what good actors can do. I remember many years ago, it finally sunk in for me when Ralph Murphy kept talking about using the pronoun you early in the song. People want to hear a song about me, not about me that I wrote, but about you, the listener. So if the lyric contains the pronoun you, you're now addressing the listener, and the song becomes more valuable to the audience. So always good, even if you've got a song that you've completed that you think is just great, wouldn't be a bad exercise the next day to come at it fresh. And rather than saying, I feel this way, or I did this, or I walked into my house, or I'm brokenhearted because my girlfriend split up with me, you could say, he's brokenhearted. Make it about somebody that we can visualize over there, about a character that we give a damn about, rather than me, the whiny, unresolved protagonist in the song. So after you've come up with a line or two, think outside of the box and work around some rhyming words and put them into sentences. Write them down, move them around, and come up with a pattern that makes sense to you. They'll buy it if you can put some good music to them. Okay, that was it from Vincent. And whoever said they kicked in kicked in 101 songs. I don't know, but Vincent clearly is the winner. Because his list was so overwhelmingly long, and I appreciate the effort because you put a lot of effort into that, and there was some great stuff in there. I think I'm going to give away a second song review by John Asher next week, just so that other people watching the show feel like they've got a shot as well. These three come from Jan Bars. Listen, here's the first one. Listen to one of the tracks on YouTube and turn on autoplay while you're doing the dishes or something like that. I find that it helps me understand the type of melodies that fit the genre a bit better, but more on an unconscious level. Interesting that both of our people who've contributed so far have talked about that unconscious thing. Before, with Vincent talking about that hypnotic state when ideas kind of flow into your consciousness, and Jan talking about putting YouTube on repeat or autoplay while doing the dishes. Gosh, I hope my wife isn't watching the show. But I like that, yeah, I like it. When I'm working on a song, this is bullet point number 2 from Jan Bars. When I'm working on a song, I make sure to have it on my iPhone so I can listen to it in the car and on the train. Obviously, he's a commuter. My throat's dry. What does that mean? Time for a rock star. I do love that flavor, but it's just loaded with sugar. So Jan likes, when he's working on a song, make sure that he's got it on his iPhone so he can listen to it in the car or on the train. I'm curious if he wants to listen to it to actually work on it more, or listen to it from a mixed perspective. I'm not really sure, but yes, certainly great to have it with you, so when you've got a minute or you've got an idea, you can go check it out again. I think this goes along with that. This is the next bullet point. Jan says, I write a list with things I want to change. That way my first hour back in the studio is super productive. That's a great suggestion. Yep. Rather than just walking back in the studio and going, okay, what am I going to do now? Let's listen to that thing I did yesterday. Why not do a little homework so you come in better prepared for that first hour? And we all know, if you have a great productive first hour, you're going to have a great productive rest of your session because it motivates you. Excuse me. And there's this week's Rockstar burp. Thank you, Rockstar. All right, thank you, Jan Bars. This next one is from Jerry Falzone. Take a universal idea or ideal and make it intensely personal. So, I've got to think about this one for a minute. Take a universal idea or ideal. I'm going to leave the ideal part out for a moment because I'm not really understanding it in the context of this, and make it intensely personal. Well, there's no question that a big part of having a hit is having broad universal appeal, where a large percentage of listeners feel, whether it's a conscious thing where they go, oh, I can relate to that, or they just do relate to that and they don't actually think about it, but it works. There's no question, and I'm not talking necessarily about universal lyrics that we talk about so frequently on the show as they relate to film and television, but a universal idea, the most basic of which, and so overused, obviously, is a love song, a relationship song. And one of the ways to have success with that is find a way to say, I love you in a way that's never been said before. Talk about a challenge. But, you know, we've all had relationships. We've all had good relationships. We've all had bad relationships. We've all had new relationships. We've all had relationships that have ended. And that's it. I can count to 4. So what can you say about those? And more importantly, what can you say about I sounded Canadian. What can you say about those in a completely fresh, you see that word in taxi listings all the time, fresh. How can you say, I love you, you matter to me, I can't live without you, I want to be with you, you make me want to get up every day, I can't wait to get home from work every day? How can you say those things differently than yours truly just said them? Because those were all cliches. So thank you, Jerry. That was a great suggestion. Johnny Law sent in a YouTube link. Honestly, I don't know what to do with that because I'm looking at it on paper. There, I'll click that link. But thank you, Johnny. Maybe after the show, I'll go watch it. Neil Newton says, number 1, listen to your little voice that's telling you that line or verse isn't strong enough. Don't try and ignore it because it's too much effort to rewrite. Thank you, Neil. A song can have no fillers. Everything must count, and that's a quote from Beth Nielsen Chapman, who's like well, it depends who you ask, but I call her a top 20 songwriter. She's a very, 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 very well-respected songwriter. You know, in Nashville, pro writers, as talented and wonderfully capable as they are, they almost always go back and rewrite and tweak, and they edit lyrics because they will literally, for the most part, and I'm talking like 95% of the time or greater, they won't leave a syllable in a line unless it serves a purpose, and the purpose could be it's a kind of an alliterative rhythmic syllable that helps move the vibe of the song forward, gives it a little feel. It could be a single word that they change an and to a but. Can make a sentence or a lyric completely and utterly different by changing a but to an and. So they will write and edit and edit and edit, and it's all about the compactness of a lyric line. So Neil says, listen to that little voice. It's telling you that line or verse isn't strong enough. Absolutely. And you know what? We've all heard that little voice. I think that little voice is called, not procrastination, resistance. Resistance is the force that Stephen Pressfield talks about in his books like Do the Work and The War of Art. Resistance is that thing that stops you from fixing that line or fixing that verse because it's just too friggin' much work. It's like, yeah, it's good enough, but you know what? It's not good enough. If you want to be on the charts, you've got to deliver something that is so much better than everybody else's mediocrity, and it's got to be better than the best stuff that's on the charts, because that's the only way to move them down and move you up so that you're on top of them is by being better. And you don't get better by giving up too easily. Neil Newton's second bullet point is when you finish your song and get a big black marker and cross out all the lines you don't think are strong enough. See point 1 above. Then start again with what's left, and that was by Gretchen Peters. Loving what you do for all of us, Michael. Thank you, Neil. Well, I love those suggestions. It's tough. When I write those little notes that I write to you guys. Sometimes there's 700 words of stuff that I write to you that go out on top of the listings that go out in the 1st and 15th of the month, the stuff that I put in the newsletter. Um, I will admit it, there are times where it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm in bed editing and I go, you know what? It's good enough. And I let things go out without 3 passes of editing. And it bothers me after the fact. I go back and read some of the best stuff that I've ever written, and that's stuff where I spent, geez, 2 Sundays ago, I spent 8 hours in the office writing one email. 8 hours on about a 350 to 400 word email. 8 friggin' hours. I could not believe that I spent 8 hours on that thing. I threw out the first 3 or 4 attempts. They just weren't good enough. And then once I got something where I went, okay, you're onto something here. This makes sense. It's got a beginning, it's got a middle, it's got an end, it's got flow, it's got educational value. And then all of a sudden I said, but you know what? I can make it better. And I sat here for probably another 4 hours picking it apart. So I hope that it was valuable by the time it got to you guys. Moving on. This is suggestion. Doing okay on time, I think. From Ben Harvey. I'm more of a pop songwriter, and full disclosure, I haven't had a forward yet, so take this as you will. Doesn't matter, Ben. All right, he's got a fairly long list, but short stuff. So I'm just going to go down the bullets and try not to interject too much of my opinion on it. Nail the melody first. Write as many melodies as you can over a decent period. Mix and match them, throw out the bad ones, keep the good ones, and keep writing better ones. Yes. When you think that you've got the melody nailed, step away for a few days. Then come back and write some more melodies. I like the fact that he's talking about melodies a lot. Now that you've got the melody nailed, it's time to write the lyrics. If the lyric doesn't have the same number of syllables as a melody line, change the lyric. Don't change the melody. Interesting point. I like it. If the words don't flow with the melody, change the lyric. That's called prosody. Don't change the melody. This is a man who clearly loves melody. And I can't argue. Don't shoehorn a great lyric into a great melody. Change the lyric. Don't change the melody. A mediocre lyric with a great melody is better. Think about this. A mediocre lyric with a great melody is better than a great lyric with a mediocre melody. Obviously, you want to have a great lyric and a great melody, but I've got to agree with Ben that a mediocre lyric with a great melody is better than a great lyric with a mediocre melody. And you could add rhythm to that as well. There are a lot of pop hits that I hear on the radio that are so infectious because of the rhythm and the melody, and the lyrics aren't as strong, but because the other 2 out of 3 elements really carry it, it becomes a hit. So I'm going to agree with him on that. Sometimes it's good to write backwards. I had a great chorus and accidentally found 2 chords that flowed really well into it. I spent the next few hours writing backwards from those chords to get the pre-chorus done, and it had to flow on from the verse at the other end. I'm going to read that one more time. It's not making that much sense to me. I understand the backwards part, and I tend to agree with that. Sometimes it's good to write backwards. I had a great chorus and accidentally found 2 chords that flowed really well into it. Okay, so chorus, found 2 chords that flowed really well into it. I spent the next few hours writing backwards from those 2 chords to get the pre-chorus done. Okay, and it had to flow on from the verse to the other end. So, yeah, write backwards. I mean, you could expand that thought to writing backwards from the whole song concept. Forget the melodic aspect or even the lyrical aspect, but just the whole song. What's my song going to be about? It's a relationship song. Let's go back to that for a minute. And then write backwards. Well, what kind of relationship? Is it a brother-sister relationship? Is it a relationship you just lost with a loved one who passed away? Is it a relationship with somebody you love? Is it a relationship that just ended? So you could write backwards and build your story once you come up with a concept. Okay, so if it's 2 people that fell out of love and the relationship ended, I want to know Well, how did they first meet? Where did they meet? What was so special about her or him, that person that I can visualize over there, that made me give a damn as a listener? So there's the setup in the beginning of the song, and now the middle. Let's talk about how the relationship developed and became more intimate. And I don't mean that in a like between the sheets kind of way, but more intimate on heart to heart level. And then what made it fall apart. So you could definitely back that out once you know what the end of the song is. Um, let's see. Think about the singer's vocal range. We talked about this earlier with Hookman, and on the top, and on that topic, why isn't this included in the listings? Um, Sometimes we do. Now, come on, Ben, be nice. No other entity on the planet gives as much detail in listings as we do. But seriously, if we had to list in every single listing what somebody, like the favorite key of this person, what their vocal range is, we will say in the listings this person has, can be very rangy in their vocals, so give them something challenging. We do put that in there. We just can't do it for every one of them. Nobody in the industry would, if we called up a vice president of A&R at a major label and said, oh, okay, so that listing you're running for that new artist you just signed, and we see that you're looking for, dancey urban pop songs for her, and she's 22 years old, and you want relationshipy kind of stuff, that's all great. What key should it be in? What's the highest note she can comfortably hit? Next thing we would hear would be click. No, actually, the next thing we would hear would be, and then click. So moving on. But I do agree. When you know the vocal range, you know what? You can almost figure it out. I'll bet you anything that if you took the top 20, let's go by gender. If you took the top 10 female hits that are on the charts at any given time, I'll bet you that more of them than not are very close to each other in the key that they're in. And the same thing would probably be true for men. People generally have like a comfortable middle range that they work in, and a lot of songs are based on that. So I'll bet you, and this is just an educated guess on my part, but I'll bet you that if you measured that or found a way, somebody said, play a song, please. Oh my God, am I that bad? That boring? So vocal range. Okay, the last bullet from Ben is keep writing, but don't set a target of X songs per month or year. Quality is better than quantity. This is difficult for a lot of us who can't write full time while meeting the listing deadlines. One hit is better than 100 returns. I've got to say, Ben, I would disagree with you on this. I'm a big fan of failing fast and failing often, because in order to write that hit, you have to learn what not to do. You need a lot of failures to get there. So I'm going to disagree with you on that one. One hit is great, but you need 100 returns to get there. I must admit I'm guilty of leaving difficult to sing lyrics in my songs because I've run out of time for a listing. It gives an example. I'll go down like a fighter. The first three words are sung quickly and it doesn't flow well because I ran out of time. If anyone has any points on how to meet listing deadlines with limited time, I'm all ears. Same way you get to Carnegie Hall. Practice, practice, practice. That's all it is. It's chops. It's craft. It's skills. It's doing something repetitively like a golf swing until you become great at it. Okay. Moving on, this one is from, I believe you pronounce this person's name Keepa, K-E-P-A, Keepa Freeman. Songwriting tips that have worked for me. Number one, after coming up with a hook, draw three. I read this one earlier, and I like this. After coming up with a hook, draw 3 boxes on top of each other and put the hook at the bottom of each of those boxes. Now, write the basic message part of the story, the development of the idea, etc., that you're going to write leading up to the hook as your song develops basically the message of your two verses. So you got it. You're putting in 3 boxes. At the bottom of each box, let's say that's a box. Make that a box. Write the hook right there. That way you have a place to write in your story. It makes sense. I like it. Make sure the idea in your hook is growing throughout those 3 boxes, and make sure your verses and bridge stick to the messages in these 3 boxes. And that, he says, was adapted from Pat Pattison. Pat Pattison is a professor of lyrics at Berklee School of Music in Boston. He speaks at the Road Rally. His books are probably the best single topic books on lyrics that you will ever read. I guarantee that they will give you a headache because they are so incredibly good. You have to read stuff like 3 times. Absolutely worth it. Pat Pattison is a genius when it comes to lyrics. Read his books. Number 2, use action words, colors, and visible objects to make abstract ideas turn into lyrics your audience can feel. Her words hurt me, as an example in quotes, should be her words cut me like a red-hot knife. And that he gives credit to Robin Frederick, our one and only homie girl, Robin Frederick. So I love that. Use action words, colors, and visible objects to make abstract ideas turn into lyrics your audience can feel. The example again, her words hurt me, could be turned into her words cut me like a red-hot knife. I love it. Number 3, turn abstract ideas or philosophical messages into a story with characters that people can relate to. There we are again with the characters. Sometimes the audience can be the character. See John Mayer's Daughters, Say and Way Down the World to Change for examples. And he also credits Robin Frederick with that one. Sometimes the audience can be the character. We Are the World? Anyway, check out John Mayer's songs Daughters, Say, and Waiting on the World to Change for examples. Number 4, use nonsense syllables to make the song more singable. La-las and doo-doos. More singing of your song means a higher likelihood that it'll be sung by and listened to by the audience again and eventually purchased. And that is adapted from Jay Frank. Jay Frank is one of the most brilliant people I've met in the business. So smart and talks so quickly and coughs up so much valuable information that you've got to record him because you could never write notes quickly enough. But he wrote a book that everybody should read, which is something.dna. I'm sure Mojo will cough this up. Songwriting.dna, hit.dna. I can't remember the name of the book. Let's see. What songwriting book was written by Jay Frank? Futurehit.dna. Thank you, Google. Thank you, Samsung. That was really quick. Futurehit.dna by Jay Frank. An incredibly valuable book that everybody should own. Number 5, your audience doesn't care about your problems. We were talking about this before. This is one of Ralph Murphy's favorite things to talk about. Talk about them to them or make them think that they are the I in your song. Write your lyrics in a way where the details are specific enough to make your audience imagine themselves in the story, but general enough where they can fill in their own details. Sat on my bed, looked out the window, sun shined down on my face. Most of your listeners have slept on a bed in a bedroom with a window and the sun shining, but they may not have looked out of the window past the polka dot shears at the sun peeking through cumulus clouds as they sat on their futon. That's adapted from Ralph Murphy and Robin Frederick. So you see what he's done here is he's, first of all, the fact that you know what polka dot shears is, very good. I'm impressed by that. But absolutely right. You know, it's one thing. We've all looked through a window and felt sun on our face, but to look through polka dot shears, that puts you there in the room. Number 6, get them with the first line. Oh boy. I mean, that's songwriting 101, but you know what? It's not said often enough. Get them with the first line. Start in the middle of the story. Sure seem happy now. That's in quotes. Already like you're happy about what? Um, it's a little hard to read. Already like you're happy about what? Why'd you say that? What's our relationship? Did we have a thing probably. Create a sense of mystery to keep your listener involved. Don't spell everything out in the first verse. Adapted from Robin Frederick, Lou DeLise, and Jimmy Needham. So start in the middle of your story. This goes back to something that Ralph Murphy has told me on a golf cart numerous times, which is more often than not, you'll want to flip your first and second verse. The second verse is often where the detail comes in, and I think Ralph's theory, if I remember correctly, is that by bringing that in as your first verse, that detail does what Ralph calls inviting the listener in. By talking about the polka dot shears versus just looking out a window, you've put them in a place, made the song more interesting, you've invited them into your world. Number 7, parts of your song will create a feeling of stability or instability. Certain or uncertain, happy or sad. That's the contrast I was talking about earlier. Make sure your number of lines, length of lines, stress of your syllables, rhyme scheme, and even your melody and harmonic choices complement the stable or unstable feeling you want to create at any given point. Odd numbers of lines in a stanza/section creates a feeling of instability. That's a great point. Great for pre-choruses and bridges. It moves things forwards. And an even number of lines creates a feeling of stability and completeness. Resolution. Great for stopping the pace or bringing a point home. Mixing up patterns of short and long lines can create feelings of stability and instability. So, strong beats or the instability of weak beats. Example, the difference between I've had enough starting on the 1 or gulp I've had enough starting on the and after the 1. The melody in a major scale, notes 1, 3, and 5, are stable. Notes 2, 4, and 6, and 7, 2, 4, 6, and 7 are unstable and want to go somewhere. Use wisely. Adapted from Pat Pattison. See his songwriting course on Coursera.org. Just put Berkeley in the search bar. Okay. Number 8, make sure let's see, how much more do I have to go? All right. I'm going to make it. Make sure your song lyrics and melody match. That is called prosody. The stresses and unstresses, I did that already. No, I didn't. The stresses and unstresses of your melody should match the stresses and unstresses of your words when plainly spoken. I think you could supplant accents maybe with stresses and unstresses. Stressed syllables should be on the downbeats, or even more so, the strong beats 1 and 3. Unstressed syllables go on the upbeats or weaker beats of 2 and 4. Adapted from John Brahaney and Pat Pattison. Take his course, yeah, we read that already. Number 9, go and study the following books, mostly available on Kindle. I'm going to read, I've mentioned all these, I think, already, but not the Pat Pattison books by name. Writing Better Lyrics by Pat Pattison. Songwriting Without Boundaries, by Pat Pattison. Shortcuts to Hit Songwriting by Robin Frederick. Shortcuts to Songwriting for Film and TV by Robin Frederick. Murphy's Laws of Songwriting by Ralph Murphy. The book. Murphy's Laws of Songwriting, the book by Ralph Murphy. And FutureHit.DNA by Jay Frank. Also, I've got to give respect and love to the late John Brahaney. Before I knew there was a taxi, he was my first songwriting teacher by way of the craft and business of songwriting. Hopefully this is helpful. From Keepa Freeman, who's got a PhD in taxi TV. Thanks, Keepa. Great stuff. And I'm glad to see that you've read all those books and that you've recommended them all. Okay, heading into our last page here, and then I'm going to start hitting you guys up in the chat room in the last half hour. Richard Bowen's first bullet point is, my favorite trick is to write a new set of lyrics using the chords from another song and change the key, forcing me to sing a new melody. So let's read that one more time. Write a new set of lyrics using the chords from another song. So basically ghostwriting, which almost all these people that have written these amazing books recommend, and change the key, forcing me to sing a new melody. Makes sense. Not ghostwriting. What's the word I'm looking for? Ghost. Where you take an existing song. I think maybe ghostwriting. I can't think of it. If you've got a lyric in your song that you think is the greatest lyric ever written and will cause peace on earth, take it out. You're probably being too clever by half. I love cliches, and no one will understand it. If you've got a lyric in your song that you think is the greatest lyric ever written and will cause peace on earth, take it out. You're probably being too clever by half. I don't understand what that means, and no one will understand it. But yeah, it's true. You know what? Speak in plain English. A lot of times trying to be clever gets you in trouble. You may get it, but your audience may not. All right, if you've got a killer hook, make the first line of your song. If you've got a killer hook, make it the first line of your song and try topping it for the chorus. Woohoo! I like that one. Write a song using the title of another song. You can't copyright a song title. Works especially well if you've never heard the song with the title that you're borrowing. I've heard a lot of hit songwriters, friends of mine that I know that are hit songwriters, that will tell me they are inspired by reading novels, that they see a passage or a thought or a line. I see it in TV shows all the time. You've got the highest paid writers in Hollywood writing TV shows and films. I'm constantly saying stuff. Not that I write songs, but I constantly dump lyrics into the voice recorder of my phone, and I steal the ideas from, not exactly word for word, but the concepts. You're allowed to take a concept. Just don't steal somebody's lyric or somebody's melody or somebody's song. But if the concept, I'm trying to think of something on the fly here, but if the concept were a fresh take on I'm lost and alone, and they said it in a really cool way, use that as the basis for a song. If I come up with a lyric hook I think is really original, I check it out on a song word site to see if it's already been used in the same context. That's a great idea. You know what? There aren't that many original ideas left, and it would be pretty easy to make it look like that you infringed a copyright when that wasn't your intent at all. So definitely worth checking out. Taking a cliche and turning it upside down can generate an interesting title/lyric. Spilled milk under the bridge. Don't laugh right away. Think about it for a while. I don't know. That one might fall under the category of being too clever. I don't know. If you got to think about it for a while, maybe it might be too clever. So I don't know that I agree with that one. But, it's not for me to judge, I guess, although I just did. But I'm just trying to disseminate information. And here we go. This is from Mark Tibbet Roper. My tips are always have an aim for a song. Whether you want to sell it to Taxi, you don't actually sell songs to Taxi, but I think he means pitch it through Taxi. To entertain, whether you want to entertain family, friends, or just post on YouTube, might sound obvious. But I dried up after one song for a while for this reason. I guess meaning that he didn't have, a use for the song in mind. I personally write with love or passion for my songs generally. The one I haven't, I probably wouldn't share or try to publish as it is bland. Okay. Try to carry a recording instrument for your voice anytime you're out, just in case. I should follow my own advice on this one. Write when you feel inspired. Never works for me to force it. I would say, I'm just guessing, and again, trying not to be judgmental here, but you know what? If you had more craft in your quiver of tools, or songwriting arrows, if you will, you might find that you are inspired more often and you wouldn't feel like you had to force it because the craft is there. He says he uses a brilliant little program called Chord Pulse to test my songs before doing anything else to them. I'm curious, so let's all check out Chord Pulse after the show and find out what it does. Getting very close to the end of the list here. Daniel Murphy says, try to write like a child and then finish like a student. Interesting. Write like a child. So that probably means with a certain amount of reckless abandon. Don't judge as you're writing. Just write it, just get it out, and then finish it like a student. Go back and analyze it and look to edit and perfect. And then finally, from Mo Gotti, Gotti, Gotti. For instrumentals, I like to come up with an interesting chord progression, then play it through a loop pedal, interesting, and just improvise various intervals in scale until something interesting happens. I really like that. If I still can't generate a melody, sometimes I'll doctor a catchy pop song's melody to fit the chords, changing it enough to be hard to recognize. I like that. I really like taking a loop pedal. Years ago, I was invited to be a judge at the Roland/Boss Loopers thing. They have like a worldwide or at least nationwide contest for people that do stuff with their looping pedals. And I was blown away by the stuff that I saw people doing with those. And I remember having the thought as I was sitting there judging that what a great way. I mean, you can sit there, and make a loop out of a 1-4-5 and then just build on it. What a great way to discover stuff. You don't need to even pull out Pro Tools. You don't need to sit down and record anything. You're just looping on, adding stuff, chunkas on top of a 1-4-5 that you've looped, and God only knows what'll come out of it. So I like that. All right, let me grab a swig of Rockstar, and then let's start taking some from the chat room. And I will remind me at the end of the show, I will give out a second song review from John Asher during next week's show. Roland Boss Looper sounds like a ladies roller derby team. Okay. They have air guitar contests with bigger prizes than what you could get from actually performing. LOL. Sad, but probably true, huh? There's Vincent. Vincent says thank you, and I'm saying thank you right back to you, man. That was a considerable amount of work that you put into that list, so thank you, and congratulations on getting a song reviewed by John next week. Steve P. says that these are the best rock stars. He's obviously been to the Road Rally and guzzled a few of those bad boys. I have a good friend that started the Y2K Loopers Festival in Santa Cruz, and it's still going strong. Great. Peter Rahill says the Road Rally was great. Is it me, or does Michael sound a little drunk? No, that's possibly me. I don't really drink that much. I'll have a glass of wine, at Thanksgiving dinner. Jean-Vieve Reed says, thanks for the inspiration, Michael. I have a new looper pedal that I haven't had time to play with. By the way, I can't remember if I mentioned this on the show last week or not. I don't even remember when I got it. The Amazon Echo Dot. If you guys don't know what the Amazon Echo is, it's this thing that stands, it's like the size of a thermos, and you say, what's the weather going to be today? Or how's the traffic on the 101? Anyway, it's $179 or something, and I just wasn't that intrigued that I was going to part with $179 for something that I really didn't understand what it did. So then they came out with the Amazon Echo Dot. I'm looking around to see if I have something. Oh, here. This is my taxi TV makeup container. When I'm always sneezing or sniffling, that's where it comes from, the powder that's in there. So that's about the size of the Amazon Echo Dot. Excuse me. It's $49, and you say, Alexa, tell me a joke, and it tells you mostly bad jokes, but some good ones every now and then. Alexa, set an alarm for 6:05 a.m. and alarm set. Alexa, how's the traffic? How's the weather? There are a million things, and it's constantly learning based on what other users are asking of it. And you can use it. We've got it hooked up to a light in our bedroom. And you say, Alexa, bedroom light. Poof, on goes the light. Alexa, turn off the light. Poof. We don't even have to get out of bed to turn the light off anymore. So pretty darn cool. I saw a question go by. How important is proper rhyming when submitting to taxis? Some people are sticklers for proper. Um, you know what, Polly? I'm not really sure how to answer that question. Um, there's so many, you could have a rhyme that's a rhyme based on a pop reference. There are all these different forms of rhymes. I don't think anybody is necessarily a full-on stickler for a proper rhyme, but if they're saying your rhyme's not working, that's just them saying that it's just not working. By the way, if you haven't checked out, oh gosh, software, songwriting software that I love, that I've recommended on the show so many times, um, Master Writer. If you want to take yourself far beyond what any rhyme dictionary can do or any rhyme website can do for you, check out masterwriter.com. I don't get paid to say that. Full disclosure, they do sponsor the Road Rally, but I would never recommend anything to you unless you know that I totally believed in it. And I have seen so much evidence that it is far, far, far better than any rhyming dictionary or any website. So there you go. Um, Tim Walters commenting on Paulie's question about the rhyming issue. He says that at the mentor session last year, one of the screeners said that if he saw a perfect rhyme, he'd be inclined to return the song just for that. Too old-fashioned. Um, Frankly, I'm a little surprised. Look, I can't imagine a screener. Maybe the screener was drinking at the mentor session, but they don't work that way. The screeners don't sit there and hear a song that's amazingly good and go, oh crap, there's a proper rhyme, I'm going to return it. They just don't do that. They may be less impressed by the song because the rhyme was so proper and unimaginative that it was cliche in its use, but screener's not going to do that. Paulie says he's got an Echo Dot. It's awesome. Um, Mojo says Digitech makes this great thing for solo performers, uses an SD card and it does multiple loops. Good to know. Um, wow. Songwriting tip from Fuller Music. Inspiration is not elusive. It's often hiding behind discipline and hard work. That's what I'm telling you. Craft. The discipline and the hard work develop your craft, and the inspiration comes much easier when you've got the craft. Um, Robbie Hancock says, I use the Boss RC20 loop station and have for years. Had an incredible amount of ideas for songs using it from both live shows and at home while practicing. Great to know. Polly said, I just triggered as Alexa. Alexa, tell Polly a joke. I was downstairs the other night and hollered upstairs, Alexa, turn on the light. And all of a sudden our bedroom lights went on. Ken DePotter said I just activated his Echo too. Pretty damn funny. Google has something similar. They do. Um, Mojo says he could use Cortana because there's an Xbox. I think Cortana's the Microsoft version. Amazon Echo Revolt. Tim Walter says, good question. Polly at the Mentor say, yeah, saw that one already. Um, so far, I've got Alexa tied to my Spotify account. Oh, that's the other thing. You can say, Alexa, play me jazz, and it'll just start playing jazz. You can say, play me a random song list from Adele. It will do that. Um, all right, I've got to keep up here. Master Writer is very neat. Master Writer is great. Um, Jackson Browne's first 4 records were all proper rhymes, every song on them. That's true. A lot of people chime in on Master Writer. Man, tons of people. Um, Master Writer is awesome. It's worth the price for just the dictionary. Um, this is a great comment from D89675. Um, Perfect rhymes sound to Broadway in today's music. See, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. There are these little, an imperfect rhyme or a soft rhyme um, just may sound more contemporary. And being contemporary matters. Robbie Hancock says, one of the best tools I use while writing on a daily basis is Rhyme Desk. It's brilliant and handy while you're in the groove in the writing process. Also has a near rhyme option. Um, Michael, I resonate with the topic of dated song structure, chord voicing, etc. As a 145 roots rock guy, I wonder if you have some current artists in mind who manage to sound modern. Yeah, look at the charts. It's that simple. Just go to a Spotify chart, go to a Billboard chart. That's what I'm talking about. Look, I'm a child, musically a child of the mid 70s. If I were a songwriter, sadly, or if I went back to engineering and producing, I'll bet you my drum sounds would sound like the mid 70s. My production chops would sound like the mid 70s to the early 80s or mid 80s. And if I wrote songs, they would sound like that. So, based on your age and the music that first made you fall in love with writing music, you probably need to train yourself to bust out and sound contemporary. And the best way to do that is to listen to contemporary music. It's there right in front of you. It's staring you in the face, so use it. Um, wow, 47 messages. Michael needs to scroll down a bit. Yeah, I'm going to have to skip. When I first bought Master Writer, I called him the serial number, and Barry Dvorzan answered the phone. I was in shock for 5 minutes. Barry's a great guy. Uh, Alexa, ask pitch pipe to play high E. Interesting. I didn't know you could do that. Oh, you can adjust the volume. Um, Michael, if you only had enough time left to get one songwriting tip, what would that be? Do you mean to give one songwriting tip? What would my favorite be? I think I just said it. Um, Listen to contemporary music. It's not going to do you much good to become an incredibly great songwriter of material that sounds like it's dated. There is some market out there for it. Unquestionably, we've had taxi members that have gotten their stuff that sounds dated or was recorded back in the 70s in TV shows and movies that are from that era. More often than not, whether it's instrumental cues or it's songs for, a TV show or a film or whatever, or radio, you want to be contemporary. I've talked about this so many times before. Fashion, right? We don't walk down the street today with a pair of two-tone wingtips or two-tone saddle shoes. That's not fashionable right now. So just like fashion changes, and it's funny, songwriters don't question changes in fashion or in furniture or in paint colors for your walls of your home. There's so many things that we don't question, yet songwriters say, hey man, this is what I do. Too bad the industry doesn't like what I do. It's not the industry. It's the industry being driven by what the public asks for. So you can complain about it all you want, but it's what people want to hear. Um, Mojo Bones song number one tip would be keep working. Don't give up. You can always learn more. By the way, Mojo, I was on your site the other day. I can't remember why. Maybe I was on the forum and I clicked over to your site or something. Um, Gotta say, love your blues guitar. You are really, truly a master. Um, Alexa, bring me a beer, then I'll buy it. Okay, tell you what, Dean. This is from Dean Crepane. You could probably hook it up so that it triggered a, take a remote control car. And it would probably, you can do that. I know guys that I fly remote control planes with that would absolutely figure out a way to do that. Um, Trying to keep up. Man, you guys are typing in some stuff so quickly. Susan Koch, Tim Walters saying that Susan Koch, a taxi screener, said she doesn't listen to anything that isn't current. She doesn't have the time for it. Steve P says, shook hands with you at the rally. You were having a problem. Kind of wish I could known you better. Sorry, Steve. This is what I sent out the apology email for a couple of weeks ago at the road rally. Pe- I'm largely unavailable at the road rally because I'm either moderating a panel or going to the restroom between panels or freaking out that a panelist isn't showing up or finding out that we don't have a piece of gear that we thought we had for the next panel, something like that. So there's always something going on behind the scenes. We try to cover our tracks and kind of hide that stuff really well. Um, Trying to catch up to you guys again. There's nothing better than listening to current contemporary music or watching current television or films to fresh up your contemporary chops. Absolutely. Think like a director when you're writing a song. Stick to one emotion. Yes, Robbie, absolutely. Stick to one emotion because you're not scoring an entire show or an entire film. Or if you're doing, radio and records kind of music, you want the song to have one emotion. People don't want to be taken on a roller coaster. I like to watch seasons of a show in a short period to hear how placements work in that show. I did that with Grey's Anatomy. Currently watching back to back episodes of something. Um, Got cut off. Jesse Peck wants to know how can you stay current when lately it changes every week? Somebody's doing it. There are clearly people who are writing hit songs that are current. They're pushing the envelope. I've talked about this on the show for 6 or 7 years now. Is anything that you're listening to today that's on the radio today, that's on a chart today, was probably in all likelihood created a year and a half or 2 years ago, especially for a new artist. There's a cycle, a marketing cycle, a launch cycle that they go through before something gets to radio, and it becomes familiar to you because it's a hit. Well, when you're listening to what's on the radio today, be thinking about, okay, I need to master the rhythmic, melodic, and lyrical components that are found in these songs that I'm hearing on the charts today, and then what can I do to push the envelope a little bit by 10% or 15% into the future? Not make it so wacky that it still couldn't be played on that chart today, but what can I do to make it not sound dated a year and a half from now? That is a challenge, and boy, if you can do that, you will become a masterful hit songwriter. Um, Peter Rahal says, join the Time Travelers Club. They meet last week. Vincent says, be the next Beatles and create the new current. In a perfect world, everybody could do that. I think that's everybody's secret dream, is to be the Beatles. Not necessarily the Beatles, but be like the Beatles in that they came up with something that was fresh and new for the time. But really, come on, weren't they largely doing, Chuck Berry and other people like that? They just packaged it a different way. They changed it by 15%, and it resonated. The charts are pretty whack. Mojo says charts are pretty whack these days, but you know what? I think we're going through a good period. I wouldn't have said that 3 or 4 years ago, But for the last year or two, I've really been hearing stuff on, that is on the charts that I'm going, wow, we're going through like a little renaissance right now. Um, Genevieve says, great show, Michael. Thank you, Genevieve. Um, Marketing cycles and expectations about how long time stuff takes could be next week's topic. Marketing cycles and expectations. But, let me make a note about that. Where's my trusty pen? I don't know if I could do a whole show on that, but I'll think about it, how long stuff takes. I'll tell you what, managing expectations, there's nothing more heartbreaking than a new taxi member who gets a forward and they have that revelatory moment. It's like, holy crap, I finally got through. I got something forwarded. And then tick, tick, tick. It's like, Chinese water torture. Just waiting and waiting and waiting because they expect that in their mind's eye, they think that there's this person on the other end that's getting their file of their song or a CD or whatever form of media it's going to them in, and in their mind's eye, because it's going in a file from us. And they can see that person getting it, and they're visualizing that happy moment when the industry person goes, this is it, this is exactly what I need, I love this is great. But the truth of the matter is, they're not sitting there waiting for that music most of the time. Some of the time they are. They're in an emergency situation and they need it like right now. But more often than not, they are looking for something and they'll get to it in a day or a week. Sometimes it might be a month or many months because they're building a collection of a certain type of stuff. They may run the listing with us for bombastic, I don't know, bombastic orchestral hybrids, okay? And they know that they're trying to get a collection of 20 or 30 of those pieces to put in their library, but they're not going to like jump up and down and make the phone call as soon as they get the first one. They're going to drop it in a file folder on their desktop, and once that file folder starts getting pretty full, or they may have a timeline, they may have a release date, a calendar set for when they're coming out with stuff, that's when they'll act on it. So I know that it's torture for you guys. I know it, and I feel badly, but that's the way the industry often works. Howling Wolf says, Chinese water torture, my next song. Tim Walter says, even a deceptively simple song like I Want to Hold Your Hand and vocals by John and Paul that varied from harmony to unison, etc., completely throughout the song without a predictable pattern. Most can't hear that, but it adds depth to a preconceived subconsciously. And then it cut off. Sorry. Check out Always Music in the Air, a great book about the Brill Building and how songs were written back then. All right, we are coming to the end of the show. I'm giving you the 2-minute warning. We're just about there. And I would like to award, I've got to do a little count here to figure out who the other person is that is getting their song listened to by John Asher next week. That would be Keepa Freeman. Woo. Yeah. Almost a tie. Going back to Ben Harvey. And I got to go with Keep on this. Although Ben Harvey virtually tied Keep, there were a couple things. No, that wasn't a bullet point. You know what? All right. Keepa Freeman, Ben Harvey, and Vincent, all three of you people. Vincent, I want to pronounce your name right. It's spelled like the vacuum cleaner company or the appliance company. Me, I can't pronounce the name of our vacuum cleaner at home either. Anyway, you get the idea. Vincent Miele, Miele. Um, I want you guys to, before Friday of this week, pick your favorite song that's closest to pop and something contemporary, if you would please. Or if you've got EDM, anything electronic, John Asher is great at that stuff as well. And send it to Laura, Laura, Laura at taxi.com. And then Laura will give them to me, and we will listen to them on next week's show. And one of the things I want to spend a lot of time with John Asher on is how he's made it. I mean, he's not a millionaire yet. You know, in his mind, he's not that successful yet. But he has become, you know, he's signed by Rock Nation, and he has writing meetings with A-list writers, and he's working on A-list projects. And so how did that happen? I forget where he's from, but I want to say like Michigan or Indiana, somewhere in the Midwest. And he rolled into town X number of years ago, and lo and behold, here he is making it. So I think that his story, first of all, he's a really nice guy. A lot of you folks have seen him on Taxi TV. Many of you have met him at the Road Rally. And I think his story will inspire you, if not educate you, on this is what you need to do if you want to be a hit songwriter and have great stuff happen for you. So with that, I will bid you adieu until next week for another exciting episode of Taxi TV. Bye, you guys.